He's a winner. When he sets his mind on doing something and sets his sights on doing it, it happens. But unfortunately, the airlines got in the way last night, and the weather did, I guess, as well, and you could not make it down. But how did Riki get into this business? He has a passion for it. He has the heart for it, and he's been in this domain for these many years. He was attending USC on a football scholarship. He was inspired by President Reagan in his 1983 speech on SDI. He knew Dr. Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb, while he got to know him while he was an intern at Lockheed Martin. He earned a degree in international business or international relations with an emphasis on defense and strategy studies from USC. Then he started a little sideline business as a linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. And he served quite a number. How long were you in the 49ers, Riki?
About 7 years.
7 years.
7 good years.
7 good years. And then went on to play with Oakland. He was a member of the playoff teams for 9 of his 10 years in the NFL. He has 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 Super Bowl rings. And I've had the good fortune of having those on 3 of my fingers at one point in time. He visits missile defense installations around the world to understand how they're used, and as I indicated, he conducts these forums, these roundtables with industry and military, retired military and military leadership or government leadership. He's frequently sought after for his missile defense expertise by the administration, military officials, and members of Congress and policymakers. Ladies and gentlemen, in lieu of him being here personally, I've got him here electronically, but he will hear you, and we will be able to ask and interact. So I promise you that. Please welcome a great American and a true champion, Riki Ellison. Riki.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for not being there, but it was fortuitous. God's way stepped in front, but there was some. Do you have the sound?
Yep.
Okay. So just welcoming everybody.
We can hear you and see you. We can hear you loud and clear and see you very well, Riki.
Okay. So I've just, things happen for reasons. Last night, the weather didn't allow us to come, but it was fortuitous. There was a pretty big momentum shift in the White House on Golden Dome. So that's was worth a little bit being able to interact with that yesterday evening to understand it and to support it. It's always great, Joe, for you to be leading this with us for so many years on it. The culture of Alabama is world level championship. That's always has been, and especially in this field, going back to 1950 with Von Braun. Going to, and I'm going to put these out there because I get to, Bear Bryant.
There you go. I know that's painful for you, Riki.
And even we'll give a little love to Tuberville for his Auburn teams that he had too. So there are some great things that have happened here in Alabama. And, you know, after my 1985 Super Bowl season, I didn't think I was going to play long because I had surgeries. I went and interviewed for a job with Julian Davidson in Huntsville, Alabama in 1985. And he hired me to go work for Lockheed Martin in Sunnyvale at the IRIS program. So my history with Huntsville starts a long time ago. And I've been in Huntsville every year from then to where we're at today. So I am connected. I know the strengths, the heart, the Bubbas, the whole movement for 40 years of relationships that you can imagine that have gone through the ups and downs of missile defense. And missile defense has gone through some major shifts from, we won't go into 74, we'll start at 78 and going into the Ronald Reagan movement for a Strategic Defense Initiative. It was, as you know, it wasn't policy, it was a research project. And then we tried to go in space again in 9/11. And we did everything we could, but we couldn't move the ball. And now here's our third iteration where the President of the United States has put forward an executive order that enables policy to do this. So this is the coup de grace. This is the moment that many of us in my generation have been waiting for on that. I'd also would say that you have to now, being as good as you are, just like Alabama football. I had the privilege of coming in there in 1978 when you guys were all world and beating Bear Bryant down there. So there's other ways to win besides the Alabama way, but you've got to absorb that. And, you know, I'll tell you, the Bo Jackson, I don't know if anybody knows who Bo Jackson is, but that's probably the most talented individual I've ever been around. But I've had to tackle him. I brought him to the ground, and he's been my teammate. So that perspective, which is a little bit different than the Alabama perspective, is also there. And also seeing Tuberville with my son was playing for SC with Pete Carroll back in those days on that. But what you've got a team here, and this whole thing is about team. This whole thing is about becoming invincible with team momentum that's unstoppable on that. And we associate with winners to win on this. Huntsville is the centerpiece for missile defense and systems of systems engineering. You've got that better than anywhere in our country. You've got modeling and sim better than anywhere in our country. And you've got integration. Golden Dome's coming to you. You don't have to come to Golden Dome. It's coming to you. But you're going to have to adjust to it. That's the key. It's not your grandfather's or your father's missile defense anymore. And we talked a little bit about that on Monday on the future of Army missile defense. We own CENTCOM. We own how to fight missile defense at CENTCOM. That's what we've done the last 30 years. And have the little North Korea shift. That's what we've perfected. But that is not where we're going. We're going to have a credible capability against the best in the world, against people as good or better than us, China and Russia. Missile defense, and you saw that, we're opening this thing up. And the policy is going to be open. This is not the old MDA. This is a shift. You got to understand this, that we are shifting into a much more capable missile defense system than we've ever had in the lifetime of this nation. And this is one of the hardest things to do. The systems of systems to do what that executive order said, to take on any threat from anywhere on this globe. That is one of the hardest engineering problems ever. And we can put this right up with the development of the nuclear weapons. We are at that level now. We are going to change the game of deterrent. We're going to enhance it. We're not going to replace it. We're going to enhance deterrence for our nation. And you've seen what happened the last month. And we all know what deterrence is. It's political will. It's your ability to hit no matter what they got and your ability to defend against whatever they got. And we saw Israel do that. We saw Ukraine do that. And we saw us do it because Iran couldn't hit the United States, but they could hit those bases. We have to get our defensive capability for our homeland to that level because we can't deter right now with non-nuclear capability to do this. And that's where the stem of this whole thing came from. And it's come into a deterrent position to do that. So a lot of life is being at the right place at the right time for the right reasons. And I was called into the White House 30 days after this executive order was issued in January because of our independence, because we don't have agenda, and because of the wealth of relationships and network that we have around the world on missile defense, starting from 1985. So on both sides, so the combatant commanders and the war fighters are saying, Riki, this scope is ridiculous. The scope of the executive order is way, if you read it, way out of control. Someone needs to, the White House needs to scope that down. And then the White House is saying to me, hey, they're sending the wrong architecture to us. We're not able to communicate to them. They keep sending the wrong stuff to us. And so just so you know, I was the 7th time to the White House was Friday. I was at the White House on Friday again, coming in because I've been with the COCOMs, NORTHCOM, INDOPACOM, the last 2 weeks in person, and UCOM to move that movement. We are a warfighter advocate. I think you all know that because that's the key to life here. The key to life is to give those warfighters capabilities to deter their opponents in their ground. And they're the driver. They're the ones that are on you for urgency and getting capabilities new, cheap in the field. So they had a position on this. The White House had a position on this. So when I first came in, they said, this is a cluster, basically, and we've got to figure this thing out. And I said, well, what? So the building at that point wanted to do a duplicate of Guam. A duplicate of Guam, and I know some of you work on Guam, but that is a failure. The Guam, what we've got over there, and the money we spent, and the cluster of policy and stuff that we're still fighting with every day, that's not the road to go down. That's the road of the MDEB and reducing the lowest common denominator, everybody feel good. That's not. That's what the building was trying to do with Golden Dome. So, and they tried to own it. And I said, they asked me, and I brought forward that this is one of the greatest problems of our country's ever had, and you better get the best general you can get, or admiral. You need a 4-star, just like Schriever. This is ICBM moment. We can go back to Richter and the nuke subs. We can go back to Grove and Oppenheimer. It is that level. And you better think through getting a 4-star out of the damn building, giving them full authorities to do this, else you will not do this. You can try, and you can go down the Guam path and waste a lot of money and effort, make people happy, I guess, but you're not going to have the capability in 3 years. So they re-looked at that, and obviously the building didn't want to do that. And then they said, Riki, well, who is that? I said, this is not entitlement. This is not DEI. This is not, you get your best general out there that can do it. I'm like, well, who is that? And there's only one that has the resume and the experience to do that. That's General Mike Gugline. And nobody can argue against that. They go, Riki, they go, okay, why don't you do a podcast? Let's interview him. So if you go back and look at my interview to Mike Gugline, that was a White House interview.
Oh my.
We do things with intent. Okay? And that's, I think you should listen to where the heart of the whole leadership is coming way back then, because a lot of that stuff's not going to change. So then they go, okay, we got to get the scope right. So guess what I did? I brought in, you know who, Dr. Griffin, to bust up the boost phase, because it was so out of control. The pricing was so out of control that we had to scope down the architecture. And Dr. Griffin did a great job. If you saw that with Dr. Porter on our podcast, it was right next to that talked about mixing offensive strike with defensive strike. I mean, we talked the whole thing through, because that's what it is too. You got to be very clear that this is going to have those kind of capabilities to do both. So then came back another time and they go, okay, we agree. Mike's the guy. I said, well, how about Riki? You need to go ask him if he wants to do this. Not because they can't. The DOD can't do that. The building couldn't. So I had to go and meet with him and sit down. And that's a daunting task to ask who already is a 4-star joint to take a risk to do this. And that was an extensive thought through that. But that is a Schriever a Schriever, that is something that you could never do in your lifetime and never have an opportunity to do something at this level. And so, but he's only going to do that. He knows the building just like all you know the building. He's only going to do that with authorities. You can't do this thing without it. So we got that when we had to fight. And I'm talking about, this has been fun for me. Seriously, I've loved this. I love fighting. And I love, it's not fighting, it's competing. And the better the competition, the better. So the whole full building, we know what that is. The whole deep state, they don't want to move from this. And that's been a great fight. And it's a good fight. And we're winning that fight. Because, so this is moving at a pace, and you're not getting it yet because that fight's not over. I think we got them right now on their 20-yard line, 4th and 25. They don't got a quarterback. They got a bunch of old players, old plays, and we're going to force them to punt. But that's where we're at. It's coming. And the reason why it's coming is because we've got a collective group of believers, of winners around this. This is, and we're rolling over. We're rolling over people that are not. And it takes an independent like me that got no skin in the game to lead that. And I'm leading it. So it's 2 or 3 months. What is it? 4 months late? We still haven't got it. Confirmation's coming. He'll be should be out of the committee today, and he should have the vote will be done in the end of July with a group of the generals, so we'll get everything done before the August recess. So that's coming, okay? So let's just step back a little bit on a bigger picture on the architect a little bit, right? And I know you guys have spent a lot of effort trying to put architects into Golden Dome. But the number one core fundamental key is the C2. That's what it is, guys. Everything else are commodities. Everything else is commodities right now. There's no system, and companies that have tried to position themselves that they own this, that's not the right way to do it. You better hold your horses and hold it back. It'll be bid on. It'll be a consortium. And that is where new companies as well as the old established companies will compete. And that's going to be done pretty quickly. I think it'll be done within 6 months. They're going to have that open competition for that. But you have to be able to do a joint, which we do not have, an all-domain C2 that can collect data from around the world instantly, process it, transfer it, and delegate it to your effectors or sensors. That's number one. Nobody's done that. That's the key to this. And the key to that is the authorities, right? Because every service and every institute is going to want to do their own C2. That ain't happening. Because you got to be above that. And that's where we're at. So that's the critical thing. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter how many commodities you have, how many pages or what, it doesn't matter. And that is your deterrence, not terminal defense. You've seen Russia just threw 700 drones. What they did last night. Terminal defense does not deter. This is going to deter. This is going to force China and Russia to spend billions, just like we did with the Soviet Union, to compete and take those billions away from whatever they're doing today to fight this. This is our invincibility. This is at a situation with that data, and you're seeing the fusion of offense and defensive data. So there's another whole part of this that will be offensive with defensive capability to spot anything on the globe, anywhere, at any time, at any place. That's the hardest thing to do. That's what's got to be complete in 3 years. 3 years, 175 billion going to be spent in 3 years. And if that's not done right, it doesn't matter what anything else does. Okay? So we know that. We know that you only got 3 years. And we know probably the big money will come in 27. Not now. This is because you've got, as you heard today, you have bills coming in without a sense of what the real architecture is. They don't know what because we don't have the key guy in place yet to say what that is. So that you got to be careful on all this and be aware and have patience and instead of trying to force stuff, to let this leadership fold out and compete with that. And yes, so you're going to have increments, probably 3 of them. Next year, 26, 27, 28, you will show integration of your capabilities that you have today and future in a process of adding on to get to all the way from hypersonic to ICBM to cruise to drone class 3 capability. So you're going to start simple and you're going to build that. And really that last one, that 28, is going to be the big one that shows all of that. There's going to be a space. There's going to be something in space, that space test bed, and having a space aspect of it in 28, that's real. That's going to happen. And that's up to you. You're the industry. You got to make that happen. That's huge to do that. So when you look at the order, the key here is counter value, not counter force. That's NSC policy. That's our cities and our populations and our areas. Okay, so that's critical to the president. The president wants to go out and show with the first iteration or the second or third that he's creating capability for the terminal layer that will fit under the space layer to defend wide areas of the United States and the population centers of the United States. So that's got to be done. And so now we go into bubbles, if you want to call it bubbles, that will be placed. And there's not going to be many to start. There's not. So I think you're smart enough to understand what's the most valuable. I know you're from Alabama, but California is pretty valuable here, guys. So I think they may get one before you get one. But I think you obviously New York City and East Coast and the West Coast is going to be pretty important on that. But again, those are effectors and containers with SMDWG, all that stuff is coming. But you have to reduce the cost of intercept. You have to do this, right? This is not CENTCOM. This is not Saudi Arabia, Qatar, who are subsidizing your missile inventories. You have to think this because that's how we're going to have to fight. That's a war of attrition if you look at what's going on here. It's not a war against a simple force. And we have to graduate to that level. And I know we got exotic stuff, but we we have to get this thing under control a little bit, get the production things up on it. I think there's a lot of issues here. Obviously, the American public's going to have a hard time with the Patriot in their backyard. You just think through all the debris stuff and all that stuff. So we got to do this. This has got to be done very well done. We've been down this path. We've seen I've been down this path for 40 years. We've seen the partisanship that could happen. And we got to be very careful on that. Because this is not a partisan issue. This should never be a partisan issue. And that's one of our jobs, is to make sure that doesn't happen. And then we get Democratic senators and Democratic states involved with this right at the start. Because if you don't, we're not going to go that direction. And this has got to be bigger than President Trump. This is for our generation. This is for the next generation. This is for our children. This is for the dominance of the United States of America in the world. This is what this is for. And it needs to be messaged that way. But you can't do anything until Mike gets confirmed to do that, and then he's going to lead out on that. Okay, there's a lot there. I can go into different regions of the world. We're doing some really interesting things in Europe with the Eastern Flank Deterrent Line. We're doing some phenomenal stuff. We're leading with our capstones at USC. Those capstone projects that we've got are becoming their courses of action for our military and congressional law. And we're opening up other programs on that. But I think I've given you a pretty broad sense of what I can talk about. So Joe, what do you think? Do I need to keep going or do you want to get questions?
Well, let's poll the audience here, if you don't mind. Can you hear me, Ricky?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I got you.
Okay. We've got a microphone here, but what do you think, folks? We've got some questions right now that occur to you that you might be stimulating for everybody. We do have a few questions, Ricky. Let's get where's the microphone?
I mean, that's our microphone.
Right here or this?
They'll
This little puppy?
have to ask you.
All right, just speak up and we'll ask, and I'll repeat the question if Ricky doesn't hear you clearly. Please speak up. Go right ahead, Steve, and then we'll get you.
Thanks, Ricky. Steve Cook, QTech Aerospace. Do you have a sense of the priority for the administration on allied participation in Golden Dome?
Allied participation in Golden Dome, Ricky. Got it.
Got it. Yes, I do. And they're all asking for it, but it's the joint open C2 that's the benefit for the Allied contribution, not the effectors as much as connecting into the C2. So we've done some of that. If you've watched what the UDL, Universal Data Library with Space Force, has forced the commercial space to give that open architecture in. So as the United States, we want to absorb as much information and data from around the world from our partners, and we want to be able to give them that data open source to do it. So that is the big thing. And it's not just operating in space right now with sensors and all that. It's operating all the way down class 1, class 2, class 3. We're doing stuff in UCOM with open architecture to share unclassed, non-class data that way. But the president has asked Mike, or asked the Golden Dome to do US first because we don't have our data right yet. We don't have a joint open data that we can connect to do first. And you got to be aware now, let's just be big and bold that our president, this president, will most likely charge those foreign nations for that data, possibly, and possibly for defense. So that's out there as well, that may happen.
Ricky, well, we got another question here. Go right ahead, sir. Speak up, please.
Hey, Ricky, this is Jeff Beignet, and I just want to thank you on two fronts. One, I'm executive vice president of a company called Penguin, and I commend you for the work and your effort. Also, I want to thank you on another, you and I met each other once because I'm Jeff Beignet, graduating class, University of Southern California, 1983. And you and I met outside, you and I met outside Heritage Hall with a mutual friend of ours, Paul McDonald. And I got to thank you, Ronnie Lott, Paul McDonald, and Marcus Allen. And I think even though we've got a lot of War Eagle and a lot of Roll Tide, I think for America and for everyone, fight on.
Hey, thank you so much for that.
Was there a question in there?
Hey, just go on that. Hey, let me comment on that real quick.
Right here. Please speak up.
So I played with some great quarterbacks,
Hang on.
and I played with 8 presidents. They're quarterbacks to me. So you can have some superstars, but you have a lot of them that will throw interceptions, pick sixes, or whatever. But your job as a defensive guy, you don't care. You just give them the damn ball, no matter what. You just give him the ball. And you hope you have a great quarterback that can score anytime he wants. But that's how I've looked at our organization over the 20 years. We're not partisan. We recognize the president of the United States is the quarterback and he needs the ball. And the defensive architecture has to be able to give him the ball, just like we saw. And you're seeing that first strike, that preemptive left of launch strike is now part of your integration of missile defense. That's why the C2 and the data collection is so important.
Thank you, Ricky. Back in the back, please speak up.
Yeah, my name is Carl Blair.
I'm not sure we can hear you, Carl. Please use your command voice.
My name is Carl Blair, Kratos Defense here in Huntsville. And I've had the privilege recently to work on lessons learned for air and missile defense in the Ukraine region for the conflict. And you alluded to it a couple of times about the UAS, counter UAS. Can you just give us some more insights on
Sure.
how it's going to be addressed? Thank you.
Okay, great. About maybe a year and a half ago, Ukraine came to me and said, hey, we've got this cheap distributable capability that's being used, which is basically a shoebox with a couple of microphones in it and batteries. Cost them about $600 to make. And that capability has been forced, not by a defense contractor, but by some guy in a garage that built this, neural networked it up through the cloud and put these things, they perfected them about every 24 Ks apart, and they can track with sound and filter out all the other positive negatives, negative positives, to create a database of every single thing flowing from Russia across their border. The last 2.5 years, they've got that data. With that capability, and they've refined it, they've been able to add it to the fire control loop for the whole air defense system in Ukraine. And they've figured out that they put those sensors on their borders, 100 mile, probably 30, 40 miles from the border. And they also redefend their most critical areas. So the Russians have tried everything, muffle sounds, all that, but it adapts to it. It's too cheap to take out. It's passive. They don't know where the hell it is. You can replace it. But that capability not only feeds in so your Patriots can use cheaper capabilities to shoot down, but it feeds into mobile fire trucks with a 50 cal, an iPad, a night scope, and you're shooting down $30,000 drones with a $5 bullet, one shot. It's not CRAM. You're shooting down $10 million cruise missiles. So that capability I took right to the U.S. Army. I took it right to the counter UAS office. First person in on that. Then I took it to the COCOMs. Then I took it to R&E. And R&E bought them, tested them, 10 times or whatever in White Sands and Yuma, cleared it. And then NATO bought 15,000 of them for $20 million and gave it to Ukraine. And it's in play today. It's remarkable. It's a cheap thing. It's civilian. It's unclassed data. So that there's many innovations going on over there. You know that. We all know that. But this is one of the coolest things that's happened. And now on fly trap exercise, which I was back there in Honesfield's test area 2 weeks ago, we tested dismounted and mounted capabilities for our maneuvering force. Our maneuvering force is in trouble. I think you guys understand that. Missile defense is big. You kind of have to spend money and effort on the maneuvering force with its own capabilities, its own counter UAS stuff to go with it. We're not there yet. And that, especially with fiber optic drones that don't need RF, that are there. This is where the investment and the priority of the U.S. Army Air and Missile Defense is not enough. This is what we were complaining about. And you're also going to have to integrate with fires. That's what they're doing. They're doing offensive fires with defensive fires with this. So what I did So I've done 19, 20 tests. I'm not even a test director, but I got that arranged in all these countries to get that. And now we went out to the flytrap and put that system through the 18th non-company. There's no companies involved with this. Zero. Homemade it into a cloud, and we're able to put it into 8 C2 systems, classified C2 systems. That went to the Stryker, that went to UDL, went to Space Force, that went all the way through all the NATO C2s and back into a NATO nation. This is innovation. This is where we got to get to on it. And we're doing another one. And so the movement there is with CD Donahue. I mean, he's the lead, is to have we created that term. We created the form. I introduced that in Poland in the conference, and I met with the Assistant Secretary General for NATO on Ops, U Safety Commander, and we're putting, the vision is to put 100 kilometers from Norway all the way down to the Black Sea. And that's only, it's ridiculous. There's only maybe, I think, 21,000 sensors required. That's nothing. We got to get ahead of it, guys. And I'm just telling you, they're ahead of it. And you can sit and wait and do the Valley of Death and wait through the R&E process, which all you have to do, and gamble on how much of that stuff's actually going to get through. That's taking you 3 years. You know this. We can't fight like that anymore. We got to find ways to be innovative. And I think that opportunity may not last long. So getting your test bed or whatever your capabilities are in that Ukraine test bed, if you can do it, is a tremendous ability to see live combat happen. Because you can create those systems in desert conditions, right, in a classroom, and they all work great. But you put them in combat, you go. I kind of went a lot on that, but I just wanted to let you know. And the U.S. is working with, I'll be meeting with Sean Gainey today. So we're working it. This is a community deal here.
Thank you, Ricky. Other question, please. Yes.
Yes, Justin Kaiser, ATA Engineering, and Ricky, I wanted to thank you so much for the insight you provided here today and speaking to us about Golden Dome. You mentioned some key things that really struck a chord with me, that the mission is about deterrence, and then you also mentioned that the key here was that joint C2. What my question is that joint C2 is great and we need it, and we all know I can't fire on a target unless I have a good enough track to get a firing solution. But C2 is not as visible as effectors. C2 is not as visible as missiles in the ground, stuff like that. So how do we communicate to our adversaries that we have this capability without, without the network, without all that being as visible?
Well, to answer that, that's called the president announcing the Golden Dome. That's what the Golden Dome is. It's not about the effectors. We mismanaged the communication because everybody thought this was the Iron Dome. It's not the Iron Dome. The COCOMs, all your warfighters at the highest levels know what you just said. It's about the data collection across everything. And we're going to be able to demonstrate that. That alone with the adversaries, knowing that we can pick up any data from anywhere in the world and be able to, I mean, you just think about it. This is not policy. Just think about it. Those satellites that are up there, maybe put 10,000, whatever they are, you can just do a gravity bomb and precision strike wherever the hell you want within a couple seconds. We got enough just to scare the hell out of them. But it's not scaring them by putting all the money and effort on commodities that are down on the ground. You want to play big, you play big. They'll message this correctly. Don't worry about that. But that's the only way you can scare the shit out of China and Russia. And that's what we have to do anyways to protect our people. We have to know wherever in the world we're going to be struck from, we have to know exactly where it is. And we have to be able to demonstrate that we know where it's at and we can take it out with kinetic or non-kinetic means on doing that. And those are demonstrations that will be coming. I'm not worried about that message. That's a presidential level message to the people.
Thank you, Ricky. Question, please. Yes.
Mike Engel from Astrion. I just had a question, since we're going down this path of C2, and it is central to how we put this thing together, but as far as any insight you might be able to provide on the discussions about operational C2 and the division of terrestrial versus non-terrestrial, and maybe tie that back to Huntsville and US Spacecom and how C2 might look on the operational side.
That's a great question, because the whole thing, as you can see, has been devoted on the acquisition development. That's what Mike is, right? That's what that is. That
Right.
whole operational aspect of it has to be done. It has to be done. And from my perspective, it is Northcom. Spacecom is too premature yet to be able to warfight. Northcom knows how to warfight. So Northcom's got the mission. They're the warfighter. They're going to do the operation. They're going to work very closely. And that's the first visit is probably going to be Northcom to coordinate what that operational architecture is, what you're trying to defend and where you're going to defend it from. And I know we're looking at bringing JIFIC IMD away from Stratcom, away from Spacecom, and bring it back down to Northcom and make that a Golden Dome task force. You're going to hear this. Then I think Sean Gaines can be in charge of that. But that's at the tactical level. We're not at the strategic level. And operating stuff in space, if we've got effectors and sensors and replacing all that, that has to be thought through. So we're not there yet, but I think that's going to come out to it. And we got to be very careful, because we don't want to go down Guam, do we? We don't want to go down that path where you're doing development, modernization for a service in Guam without understanding the operational capabilities you got to have. We can't do what we did in Guam. We can't throw a bunch of stuff in there and then decide to build an architecture to fit all those pieces. It's got to be the other way around. You got to build your C2 first. You build your C2 first, not build your systems first. That's where we had problems at this level.
Ricky, regarding that C2 solution that you're speaking so eloquently about, I cannot imagine us in the industry or developing such a solution in 3 years. Will it be an amalgamation of an integration of weapon system C2 with an overlay, with a layered overlay, you might say, for global C2? And I also want you to address the seabed to space, because this Golden Dome is not merely a space-based defense or terrestrial defense. It is defense from seabed to space. We all know. So please, have at it.
Okay, just go the first question, Joe, real quick. The
First question was the C2 solution.
okay, yeah, C2 solution. Let's start with that.
Let's
start with that.
3 years.
They're not going to pick one. I got it. They're not going to pick one company. They're not. It's going to be a consortium. And this is where they're going to bring the new innovators into the picture. It will be a consortium to figure that out. Obviously, you're right. There are systems that are mature, but he's got to link them all together to do that. And I think that's going to be one of the first proposals out that will be done on that. So that's where the innovation is going to really focus on. I think the commodities, the big companies already know how to do that and scale up. And they're probably going to be the dominant partners in doing that. But this is the opening for the new innovation. So you can say, Joe, I was here 20 years ago with you when we put with Larry Dodgen throwing that football to him when he put 6 missiles in the ground in 3 years. I mean, we can do stuff that you might not believe we can do in today's world. We are so far advanced. So don't say we can't do this. You got to let this thing open up, and they got to let it's all about the right teammates, right? You got to put the right people the right companies, the right leadership, and you got to move away from the culture that we've been in. That's been the biggest fight that we've had just to get to where we're at, because nobody wants to leave their culture, because the processes, all of you know those processes. You've done it. 3-year cycles, budget cycles. You've done it for 30 years against a very small threat. And you've done well with it. But we can't win and do this without that. And that's why those authorities are so important. That's why that position. So you got a new head coach. Like Saban's left you. You got a new coach. And you're going to have to adapt. You will. You have to adapt. You're going to try. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people that want to fight this and not move on this and play the same game. But we're going to beat them. You have to. The president will beat. This president won't put up with that.
I agree, Ricky. It seems as though we're going to have to get the industry in the room. And so,
yeah, we will. That absolutely.
Leave their badges at the door relative to their solution, because we cannot compete this thing and have a solution in 3 years or any reasonable result in 3 years in a competitive environment of any sort. And I know that's difficult for by the way, we have the largest crowd we've ever had here at the Space Missile Defense Work Group. I don't know, we need to pan the audience so that you can see. We almost got 200 folks here in a relatively small room. But they're all here to try to find out how their companies can participate in some way, shape, or form. And they may all, and I trust they all have something to add to this solution. I don't know what that looks like right now, but I venture to say that the parochial nature of competitive environment of companies and businesses and so forth are counter to speed. And we're about speed. We're about meeting an objective. So we're going to have to get industry to coalesce in some way, shape, or form, and leave your damn badge at the door and bring what you got, because we're all in this together. Comment on that, please.
Well, it's not like it's like an NFL team with a bunch of superstars. But you're going to have to play with that. You're going to have to set the culture to enable that. We have no choice. And he's going to go with the people that can contribute with velocity. And the reason why he's got authorities like Schriever is to break those walls that you've got. He has the authority to do that. Unlike MDA director, unlike Army Missiles and Space, so he's got a way through this. If he believes in you. The team has to be able to put their best people forward to contribute. And I think that opportunity is going to happen. You're seeing a fight. I'm just giving you a little insight with R&E trying to have MDA underneath them. And a lot of people in the building don't like MDA. We know that. But MDA, I believe, will be direct report to the commander. So they don't have to go through R&E.
What's the timeline on Gutlein getting in place?
Well, I told you, he can't go until he's confirmed, voted by the Senate, and they would do it before the August recess. So he'll get swept in on that. So he'll have that.
We've seen some early indications that there will be if not the headquarters, a co-headquarters at MDA here in Huntsville.
There'll be,
yeah,
I mean, MDA is going to be a huge part of this. I don't think MDA can survive without being part of Golden Dome. They are Golden Dome. They got to shift to him. But MDA will be the system of systems integrator, test mod. They're going to be a centerpiece. But I don't believe the Golden Dome does not. That has to be in Washington, D.C. It has to be to adjust, and that's where it's going to be. Whether you like it or not, that's where it's going to be. The head. But you have to move, and you can't get ahead of them. You've seen MDA try to get ahead of them, and you move the conference, right? You got to wait. You guys are going to have to wait. It's coming. You better be able.
This is the Golden Dome Summit right here, buddy.
Yes. But have
We
some
decided-
patience. The
we-
worst you
we-
can do
we
is put a
decided to
bunch
have
of
our
noise
own-
out there,
Yeah.
because those
That's
guys
what
are
we're
getting
doing.
punished. The ones that put noise out there, that say they got the solutions. We know you got the solutions. I mean, if you look back at this, Shags, that O'Shaughnessy put this for solutions in 2019 for homeland missile defense, for cruise missile defense. We got, it's just adding them in. But to me, those are commodities. They're looking at that C2. That's the hardest thing we got to do. Not create a cheaper missile or create capabilities that can do all that. We'll do that. Hey, the second point, Joe, I forgot. You brought that up. Where is the U.S. Navy on this, man? They seem to have disappeared, just like they did in Guam. So we get they don't.
Ricky, we did not want to sink the island. Okay, we did not want to sink the island.
But the Navy's been scared to death because they didn't want to have their ships parked out in front of the coast right now to give you that capability. And so they have been very nascent in this whole process. I don't know if you watched this, but they're going to have to, it's a team game here, man. They're going to play. They're going to have to play. So I think that's going to be woven back in on that. But you can notice these things here, right? And you notice that these services are all wanting to ride that 175 billion. You know that too. So they want to dump all their programs that have any missile defense stuff in it so Mike can pick it up. So those are the politics that are happening, as you can tell.
Talk about the impediments to speed, because speed is
The
of the essence.
the number one impediment is the building. Number one. That's it. And there needs to be some ghost busting. We've been doing that. That culture has to change. And I think you've seen it. Look what Kane did with the strike on Iran. We're doing stuff that we've never done before. You got Hegseth in there specifically to change the culture. But the key here for everybody, you got to show wins. You got to show wins starting next year on that first iteration. Win. This is all about winning. This is not about, hey, delay this, delay that. We're not ready. We're 2 years away from. That's not going to hold in this administration. You have to, you have to produce results and show wins. This is not a long-term research project. You better deliver wins. He's going to demand it.
Will General Gutlein have all the authorities that he needs? Or what can industry do to support?
You need to stay out of it. I would just have all you guys stay out of this, man.
I got you.
You guys get involved with stuff you shouldn't be involved with. This is stuff you shouldn't be involved with. Because if you are, you're going to be seen on the other side of the fence. You better stay out of it. So, yes. So why would he take the job? Why would he do this? Would you do this if you didn't have the authorities?
No, but in
Then
many
why
cases,
would you do the job?
many cases, these folks need to create their own authorities, as General Perna did on warp speed and so on. I mean, these things move at the speed of personality in large measure. And Gutlein needs to have that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Have you seen anything? Joe, the President of the United States was in the room with Mike Gutlein, said, this is our guy. Don't mess with that. That silver bullet is a badass bullet. We have never seen that with any other missile defender.
That's a big one right there. Any other questions, folks? Any other questions? We got a question over here. I'm a Navy guy. Be careful.
Thanks, Jeff. Tony Taylor, Tech 5. Going back to dovetail earlier on some of the data-centric questions. So are we ingesting data already from the Ukraine-Russian conflict, what happened in Iran? And if so, how can some of the smaller companies here in Huntsville start planning ahead? Is it going to be an ingestion of data? Is the data going to be more important than the systems, or is there an AI lean already of how to ingest, build the data models, something along the lines of Palantir's Maven system that's already in use? Can you talk about that a little bit? How important that'll be?
I would say that the Super Maven is your cell phone. That's all it is, right? They collect all the apps and they display it very well. Your job is to create apps to go into that cell phone. The data, they don't have the data. They need to bring the data in to do that. I know the Ukraine hasn't given the United States all its data. I know that. And we certainly know Israel and US and those relationships on that. So we do understand with any country and their national security, they're not going to share everything. They're not. We don't do that either. So what Ukraine's done and Israel is taking non-classified data and other sensors or other things you can look, RF, whatever, to move in that spot. Data is king right now, not the effectors. Make that clear and clear and clear. And this is where small companies can contribute. You got to get in the game because you've understood how to move this fast. And I would get over to Ukraine and look at what they're doing with data collection and movements on that. There is a receptivity for the AI, for the data with Golden Dome, because Golden Dome is going to touch the data from space all the way down to class 3.
Follow-up question. Go ahead.
I'm glad thank you for that answer. That was really kind of my question was, are we going to get data from the Ukrainian government so we can set this system up quickly? And you answered it. I didn't want to ask it that way.
Well, I'll answer it again. Yes, the Eastern Flank Deterrent Line is doing that. They actually are taking the data. Obviously, they can't operate that if they don't have all the data from those sensors for 2.5 years on everything. They're going to get that. And everybody's going to get it. Everybody's going to get it. So that's happening. This is revolutionary stuff. This is not the stuff that we've got out there. A lot of this is where new companies can do things that the other companies can't because they're not programs of record. And programs of record are restricted and all that. It's very difficult for programs of record to play in this game right now.
Ricky, we got one more question, and if that's okay, well, maybe a couple, but very quick, and we'll have a wrap up. Go ahead. You're on.
Justin Brown, Centaur. Talk about land, sea, airspace. What about the cyber domain? And more the fact that we kind of need to change our paradigm when we think about cyber in that type of world with Golden Dome and everything like that.
Did you get that, Ricky?
I got that. But that's a whole nother element that's classified, that's being done just like the offensive stuff is being done. The public viewpoint on a protection system for the American public is based on the Golden Dome. We assume that we can handle the cyber and that we have smart people on the cyber aspect of it. But this Golden Dome is an initiative by the President of the United States to protect us, the people. So that's where that is. I can't go into cyber. I'm not familiar with. My board member, Mark Montgomery, is all over that. We know that. So you can give him a call if you want.
Thank you, Ricky. Yes.
Rich McAdams with AV, still May 1st, was AeroVironment and Blue Halo. First, thank you for your comments today. They've been very insightful. Just so you know, we've been collecting data in Ukraine since the invasion of Russia on the counter UAS front. It may sound crazy, but you probably know with your connection to Huntsville, even though we're a publicly traded company, and I'm sure there are others in the room, we put the mission and supporting the warfighter ahead of the shareholder value. Of course, we have to stay in business and consider shareholder value, but it's behind supporting the warfighter. As a second-generation combat veteran, that's why I went to Blue Halo and stayed as an Aero AV. My question to you is, how much are we looking at left of launch as part of Golden Dome? Taking that data that we've been collected, and it ties in with the cybersecurity and intel things as part of Golden Dome.
Did you hear that, Ricky?
Yeah, I heard it. I think it's at least 50%. You're not going to hear about it. You're not going to hear about it.
Yes, sir.
But the key to that for everybody is the data movement. Whether you're offense or defense, again, those are commodities. But if you don't have the data to do this, it doesn't work. So we are heavily going, not heavily, but you're seeing what happened with the Russian bomber fleet. Our Air Force is scared to death. They look at all those runways they got to protect. You got to start with data collection, guys, not with individual systems that go to every runway. You got to figure this problem out. And we've got to leverage what we're doing with both civilian, military, all the way up. And whatever that solution is, I'm telling you, that BDL is going to come down to the border with NORTHCOM on the Mexican border. It's going to go out and we're going to create an island chain for first island chain. Same stuff, the same stuff. We got to do this. We got to adapt to the fight. And the fight, let's not get confused because it's just not that. It's hypersonic glide, it's ballistic, it's cruise, all at the same time. We can't get focused on just one little problem. We got to look at the whole thing. And again, that goes back to data. So until we get that right, then you can start fitting all these things in. And we don't have enough money or enough things. That's why there's only be one or two, maybe three sites that we're going to go at right away because we don't have that. Or we're going to start parking ships everywhere, which nobody wants.
Indeed. Riki, we made the best out of a bad situation this morning, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for making this happen. I know you struggled last night. You traveled from place to place trying to get an airline out of Washington, D.C. You couldn't make it.
Hey, Joe, I'm still coming. I'm landing I'm meeting with Sean Gainey this afternoon and with Heath later on.
I'll see you later.
I wish I was here to meet a couple of you guys, but I think I might have some time at the hotel lobby in Jefferson. You can pass that out I don't see everybody, but I know there were some people that wanted to see me in person, but I will be in Huntsville today.
Okay, 106 tonight in Jefferson?
Yeah. Say like 4 to 5, 4 to 6, somewhere in there, cocktail hour.
All of you are invited.
Joe, you're buying.
He's buying.
You're buying.
Take your name.
The NL money from Auburn. We'll get Tubervilles.
But thank you again for making this work this morning. It was too late to cancel. I hope everybody got what your money's worth this morning about this. And I want to invite you next week to the working group meeting at Ulista at 0800 on Thursday morning. But if you want to wrap up, Riki, we'll wrap up with a few comments. Thank you again.
Yeah. We're on the verge that this country's never, ever been on. We're on the verge. We're not on the verge. It's going to happen. But we are shifting warfare to dominance by the United States of America. You're part of that. You're part of building a defense against what our public is seeing killing people all over the world. You're part of that. You're a team player. So this is not all you have to be the same. We're not about that. The more diverse you are, the more value you bring to the team. But you have to trust and you have to be able to play with each other. That's the key thing. And it's going to take time, but this is one of the most exciting projects in mankind right now. And you're in it. You're the heart of it. So I'm excited for you. I think you're going to be the answer, but you're going to have to win. You're going to have to get out of your old ways. You're going to have to change culture. At MDA, change culture and how we've done it. You don't have Shelby here. You don't have the Bubbas. You don't have a selected amount of money. This is big time game. You need to be big. You need to grow up and get out of the 70s, 80s, 90s and play and contribute. The country has to have you. We can't do it without you. So thank you for the time to speak with you. I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you. It would have been more fun in person, but I think we covered a lot of ground that I've never done this to anybody. We haven't opened this up publicly like I did today. And this is me, not Mike. So I don't represent Mike. I don't represent MDA. I don't represent the president. You're just hearing from me, nobody else. So that's what I make sure you just quote me, nobody else.
We need to publish the MDAA disclaimer statement. Ricky, thank you for being with us this morning. Let's give Ricky a warm round of applause.
Thank you.
And we will see you in August, if not tonight at Jefferson.
Joe,
Ladies
I
and
will
gentlemen.
see you at tonight at the Jefferson. You are showing up.
You
Okay.
bet. You
All right,
guys,
thank you.
Thank you for coming, folks. Any final comments from anyone? I hope this was worthwhile for you. It was for me.
How was that, man?